Hi there. Welcome to Business Link, the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce's podcast to talk about what's going on in the community of Lincoln and exciting things. I am so excited to have a couple guests here joining me in the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce offices at the AOI Podcast Studio. I'm joined today by our Lincoln Police Chief, Michon Morrow. Welcome, Chief Morrow.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And then we also have Todd Ogden, who is the president and CEO of the Downtown Lincoln Association. Todd, welcome to the Chamber.
Thanks, Jason.
Now, I think you guys might be perceived as a little bit of an odd couple. I don't know that they see police and downtown a lot together on other podcasts, but I'm excited for the conversation we're going to have because it's a very live conversation in the community. And that is how a growing community like Lincoln can best navigate any sort of issues we might be experiencing with unhoused populations and homeless people in our community. So welcome to the Chamber. We're thrilled to have you both here today.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
All right. Well, before we jump into that, just a quick bit of history. Chief Morrow, you've been in the role for how long now?
So official since March of this year.
Yeah.
Just over a year if we want to account for the acting chief time.
Yeah. Awesome. And thank you for your leadership. It's been great to have you at the helm of an important institution in our community. Todd, you've been at the Downtown Lincoln Association for quite some time.
Yeah. I grew up downtown. I've been 18 years at the organization now.
Wow.
And took over as president in 2019, just before the pandemic. So great timing.
And you're both long-term Lincolnites. You're both very familiar with not only the organizations you run, but the changes that have happened in Lincoln throughout several decades now. So it's going to be a good discussion. Todd, why don't you cue us up here when it comes to some issues around homelessness? Maybe what you've been hearing from stakeholders in our community and downtown businesses too.
Yeah, organizations like ours, so Downtown Lincoln Association is a business improvement district. So there's thousands of those around the country and around the world that track different issues, and the International Downtown Association always has hot topics, and we have conferences and we have programs. And one of the top issues for all downtowns is always safety. Anytime you have kind of a conglomerate of places where people gather, people of any walk of life gathered, that's usually a downtown area. So you want to be active with figuring out what are issues you have and how can you respond to them. So for us, I think the biggest thing is, as we talk about not just homelessness, but certainly our safety profile, we look at major categories like crisis homelessness, chronic homelessness, loitering, panhandling, vandalism, and violent crime. And how do you track that? How do you work with that? What's the difference? Again, because it's really important not to clump those things together. Homelessness and crime isn't the same thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of these overlap, but certainly there's a lot of different, very specific issues that we have to try to find specific responses for. And that's why we're lucky, because a lot of the times for downtown organizations, the best thing you can do is work with having appropriate partners. And there's no better partner for us than having the city and LPD, where I can't say it enough. We are so lucky to have Chief Morrow here. We don't know how good we have it. A lot of other, again, there's better police chiefs maybe that have existed, but I don't agree. I think we've got the best one out here.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
Yes. And and that is not facetious at all. Like this is not normal to have the kind of partnerships we have where our police department works with our mayor's office, works with our downtown, and certainly they have other issues besides downtown. That's my focus, and our social service agencies. And for us specifically, we work mostly with Centerpoint, and having those partnerships have allowed us to figure out how to have appropriate responses to certain issues that we have on safety calls.
Now, Chief Morrow, I'll come to you for this, since this is still a relatively, comparatively recent announcement in terms of how the relationship with Centerpoint and possibly other partners is structured. Can you describe how maybe the City of Lincoln and the Lincoln Police Department are working with some external non-law enforcement partners?
Yeah, and I want to pick up of what Todd was saying that is really important to highlight kind of the foundational why of the program, and it's alternate response. So going back to acting chief, that was in July of last year when I started. In August, we kickstarted alternate response because it was something that we were passionate about implementing. And the why for this is already been said, and that homelessness, being unsheltered in and of itself, isn't criminal. And so we needed to understand how we could better engage and problem solve with the downtown area, with other partners, to create more safety perceptions of safety, feeling of success for the downtown community. So with that, the alternate response, we have a partnership with Centerpoint. And for those that are listening, it's still the same number to call. So if you see somebody who is homeless, unsheltered, we have concerns, it is still the non-emergency number. That's that 402-441-6000. It's a one-stop shop call where now if you call, our telecommunicators have a kind of a three-prong policy, because we're not turning a blind eye. We do recognize that there is criminal activity that revolves around being unsheltered, right? The vandalisms, drinking in public. Sometimes we see the panhandling. So they're going to be asked, the callers, are they committing a crime right now? And if the answer is yes, you're still going to get a law enforcement response. Are they giving the impression that they are having a medical emergency or a mental health crisis that's beyond just daily experiences? And if the answer is yes to that, you're likely to get a response from LFR and LPD. And then if it's simply, I'm just concerned about them, it's really hot, it's really cold, I don't know if they have the resources to care for themselves appropriately, that call gets diverted to Centerpoint's outreach. Their crisis outreach response workers come and they take the call, they interact. But again, we're still very responsive to the needs of the downtown. So when we kick that call over, if their staffing isn't available within 20 minutes or it's outside of their parameters of their work schedule, it still gets attached to an officer. So no call gets ignored.
Okay.
It's just the timeliness and perhaps who that call is. But since we started this program, we've diverted about 1,200 calls for service.
Wow.
And they have been successful in housing about a dozen of these individuals that, truth be told, I don't know that we would have had the same success because we just interact differently. We're in our uniform, we have our cruisers, and we don't have those resources readily available in building that relationship where our partners at Centerpoint do. So we think in the long run, this is a much more successful program for us as we partner with the downtown to make sure that it is safe and secure for all who come and enjoy all of the activities.
Yeah. I want to ask a quick follow-up question too for, maybe folks that haven't been experiencing this or haven't been in a role or seen it in downtown, why it's so important to have a partner like Centerpoint, because officers will proudly do the work that they do for this community, but that sort of stops and starts at certain activities. And Centerpoint staff are coming with a different set of background training, access to resources. So I wonder if you can expand on maybe kind of those different buckets of activity, if you want.
Yeah, you said it very well. It's just our partnerships are very powerful for us. We train our officers to have a solid foundation, a knowledge base of resources that they can refer to. But oftentimes it's after the fact when we communicate with somebody that we understand is having struggling, whether it's homelessness, it is mental health challenges, it is drug and alcohol addiction. We're making referrals for down the road. Please check in with these individuals with this organization, they can assist you. But it's very real time when we have our partners at Centerpoint who can say, hey, we are the resource, and if you are willing, let's take a ride. We can take you to our facility. We can get you the treatment and the help that you need. And it just looks very different. Yeah. We have a perception for those individuals interacting at that level. With our involvement, there's something criminal about that activity, when realistically, we just want to be a partner in getting them the resources they need for them to be successful.
Yeah. Thank you for unpacking that. So again, that non-emergency number that you all want people to call is 402-441-6000, 6000.
Absolutely.
All right. Todd, we've had a lot of conversations in terms of, in particular, how this manifests itself in downtown. What do you feel like the most sustainable long-term solution is to this? So in the community, we feel like we have less of this activity to be concerned about in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And again, like the best answer from long-term on any downtown is activity.
Yeah.
we need to have active areas and try to avoid pockets where there's no activity. So it's not just having an active downtown, but it's making sure we've developed many different kind of mini boroughs in downtown. You now have kind of the downtown blocks in the core of the area, the old central business district. You have kind of the Capital District south of downtown area. You have Haymarket, West Haymarket, South Haymarket, Telegraph District now, Antelope Valley, to make sure each of those areas feel like they're a destination where when you're out, it's active. Because again, I can't stress enough, like we talk about this with the police a lot and track the police department. And you know data. They have all the data in the world. And the numbers are down. But I want to reiterate, that doesn't mean that there's not issues. Perception is up. And people see that. And it's real. Just because we say the numbers down does not mean there aren't problems. There's very visible issues with calls that are concerned, whether it's somebody sleeping in front of their doorway or somebody having a mental health issue where they're screaming out loud and it's intimidating or scary, or they feel like what can I do to help? So the alternate response is great for that. But at the end of the day, people want to help downtown and want to know what to do. And also, if there's people sleeping, it's about activity. If I'm walking by myself and you find an issue where somebody may be having a mental health issue, it can be intimidating for somebody by themselves. And you don't know. Not everybody's a trained mental health professional, and we don't expect them to be. And that can be intimidating. So what can we do? And part of that, again, is the alternate response, our partnership with Centerpoint, where we now have full-time outreach workers that can go talk to those individuals. And just, again, try to figure out ways to activate these spaces, because when there's an active area in the community, let's just go with the biggest city in the country, New York City. That's the big example of where when they answer on how did you clean up crime back when Giuliani came in, back when they came in, and it's like a lot of their answers from their downtown levels was, we activated the area. There's still a lot of people there. I don't notice it when there's thousands and thousands of people walking on the sidewalk.
And Todd, for you and I have had this conversation a lot, so I know what you mean when you're talking about activation. But just in case there's folks listening that maybe haven't heard you talk about activation, can you give us some examples of what that's like, what that feels like?
Activation to me, it's not just events. Events is the most obvious one. Is you have events and you have a lot of people going out there. So if you have a park, you certainly want to have active parks. Again, when Tower Square is not active, you have maybe a couple loiterers there that aren't necessarily using the park for the right reason. If nobody else is there, it seems like a big issue. But when it's a nice day and people are sitting at the tables, I've never gotten a call on that. We get the calls when it's not an active park. But activities also, where are people consistently flowing through? Are there employees that are going on their break, walking around downtown? Again, post-COVID, we had a lot of change on when and where people were officing. Mm-hmm. So the perception's higher when you have people hanging out and loitering in an area where they were kind of free to kind of do their thing and hang out. And most of them don't want to be in the way of other people. That's why they were there. But now things, again, are thankfully rapidly evolving downtown, where we're getting people and activating it more. And like, wait a minute, now we're encroaching on this public realm area where this seems intimidating to me. So a lot of it is like, how do we get that consistent activity there and see people when I'm walking around? Let's say if you're with a small child, like what would make you feel most safe? And it's when I'm walking, there's more than just me and one other person, no matter who they are. So you want to know there's other people around, and you want to know that you're in a safe area. And that's what's tough for us, because again, publicly, we love that relatively our city and our downtown is relatively safe. That doesn't do anything with the people walking on the street. So yes, you want to communicate that because we want to continue to be active, but you also want to let people know there are issues that come up, and we have to know what's the appropriate response. And again, going back to the alternate response, pushing that, make sure, okay, I know what to do in a certain situation. So that's the shortest way I can kind of respond to activity.
I think that's fine. I want to underscore a lot of what we're talking about is things that our organization, your organization, many other groups in town are doing. We're trying to create these opportunities for more things to be happening in downtown that people will come to, things like the winter market or, another race, or you guys did the trick or treating in the Haymarket. Like, those are fun things for our community to enjoy simultaneously. And then of course on the economic development side, we're always trying to bring another business into downtown, more employees into downtown. That helps our economy in so many other ways, and it brings more people into spaces that I think in the long term will help alleviate, maybe some challenges that we feel like we're having related to this. Tell me, and this is a question for either of you, and I know, again, the police are going to interact with this in different ways than some of our partners, but tell me about the importance of boots on the ground aside from that activation. What's maybe DLA or other partners doing in terms of monitoring areas of downtown? How did the police interact with that? Just the police presence of sometimes a cruiser can make all the difference if it's visible and in the right place. How does that interact with part of what we've been talking about today?
Chief has a great response to this. So
thank you.
Yes.
So, we have been really actively engaged in what I will call listening sessions, making sure that we understand where our pinch points are, where the perceptions are high, that we need to have more of a presence in the area. Sometimes, again, like you said, that cruiser or potentially one of our bike officers in the downtown area just provides a sense of that safety and security, that we have that law enforcement official in the area if I were to need them. And so as we've grown in the downtown area, we want to make sure that we're continual partners in that conversation as well. So as we move forward into 2025, many people will remember that we used to have bike patrol on day shift, and now it is more of an evening assignment that we have for our Southwest team in that downtown arena, Haymarket area. But we are going to grow that. And we are going to bring it back on the day side so that specific area of our city sees our officers out and about more regularly. We think that is a part of what we do as community-based policing, and the downtown area is thriving, and we want to be a part of that. Our officers live here too and enjoy downtown activities, and so as much for everyone else as for our officers and those that work at the department, we also want to make sure that it's safe for all.
Yeah, great. Todd?
Yeah, I think just having something like that's huge. And again, I'll say it again, we're so lucky to have LPD the way they are, and everybody continue to support LPD in as many ways as possible. And shout out to Melissa, and shout out to Matt and Topher at Centerpoint. Like it's really helped get perception a little bit higher on figuring out tactfully how to respond to that. And that's a real tactful response to specific issues. And again, that's what's hard is when you have responses saying, what are you doing about safety? It's really hard to say, here's how we're approaching like violent crime, for example, because if you have a lot of one-offs or issues that aren't consistent, they all kind of have a very specific response and answer. And for us, it's all about communicating. That's why this is important. Appreciate you having us here, because we need to figure out what the very specific problems are. And our city has shown that they're willing to find specific responses. And this is one of the specific responses that Chief did when hearing, okay, these are the kind of the times of day which makes most sense, because it is a fine line. You don't want it to feel like an area when you start seeing a lot of officers out there all the time. Like, is this a really unsafe area? Why are there so many police out here? But at the same time, you want to know it's there not only for people that may be doing something where they are doing something illegal, whether, again, it would be vandalism or something like that, where you don't feel like, oh, it's just a free-for-all, we can do it here. But also for the people, for the employees, for the residents, so they can feel safe. I know I can work downtown. I know I can live downtown because I know there is a presence right around the corner or right next to me. And that's really important as we continue to grow as a downtown and a city.
I think it's important to remind everybody too. Lincoln, compared to other cities our size, certainly compared to other cities that I have lived in myself, we don't have a huge insurmountable challenge with respect to our homeless population. We have a very safe community that is already a wonderful place to be. And when we bring in visitors from other cities, often they're struck by how safe it feels, how they don't notice, they don't feel like they notice the prevalence of homeless populations as much. There's so much good that has already been done well, I think, in Lincoln compared to some other peer cities. And that notwithstanding, we can always try to improve, and I think that's what a lot of this conversation has been about too. Is how can we balance that need for security and public safety and community, that sense of community, with compassionate and dignified responses to people that are having some challenges when it comes to homelessness. Yeah. So, well, I want to again encourage everybody, if you do see something that you have questions about, if it's a non-emergency situation, but you want to report it or get a response, please call 402-441-6000. Or there's more information at the downtownlincoln.org website under the Connect page in the community outreach side of things. And so there's some great information there. Again, this has been Jason Ball at the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, talking with two of my friends here building this community. Chief Michon Morrow, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks again for having me.
And as well as Todd Ogden from the Downtown Lincoln Association. Look him up online, folks.
Thank you.
That's it for Business Link for this episode at the AOI Podcast Studio at the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce. I'm Jason Ball, and we will see you next time.